All right, hi guys, welcome to lesson 5. Wow, can't believe we're already here. So today we're going to be learning how to divide fractions. So dividing rational numbers, we just finished multiplying, and this is going to be kind of a continuation of that. Dividing fractions and rational numbers is very similar. The fractions are the tougher part, the decimals, again, calculator is going to be pretty easy, and it works the exact same way as multiplying. Fractions, it's almost the same, we just have one little difference that we're going to make. But just to recap, if we have an odd number of negatives, okay, we end up with a negative answer. If we have a even number of negatives, we end up with a positive answer. Okay, so before we were doing positive, before we were looking at it as, okay, well, if we have a plus and a minus, it equals a negative, but that would be an odd number. This is going to help us as we progress through the course, if you remember this. I think it's even less to remember. It's only two things to remember, odd or even. We should be able to do that. And if you can't, it's all right. We're going to work through it. You get practice and you will learn it. All right. Today, though, we're going to look at dividing fractions. So there's 4 main steps. They're very similar to multiplying, but we just have this little added bit here. So step 1, we determine the sign of the quotient using the sign rules, right? So is there an odd number of negatives or an even number of negatives? We change division sign to a multiplication and flip the second fraction. So flipping or like multiplying by the reciprocal is a fancy way of saying flip the fraction, okay? Once we've got that, we multiply the fractions just like we were doing before, and at the end of the day, simplify, okay? So always simplify. On the test, I'm probably going to be mentioning simplify, and if you don't simplify it, you're losing marks, and that's a really lame way to lose some marks because that's going to be the simpler part of solving these problems. All right, so let's look at a few examples. All right, here we're going to start. So we end up with negative 5 over 8. Step 2 says change division signs to multiplication, okay, and flip the second fraction. So here we had 3/4, but now we're going to have 4 over 3. Okay, once we go here, we can multiply across, or if you want to get fancy, you can do cross canceling once you have flipped the fraction. Okay, so here 4 goes into 8 twice, 4 goes into 4 once, 5 and 3 have nothing in common, so we can't do anything there. End of the day, we just multiply. So negative 5 times 1, negative 5, 2 times 3 is 6, and we've already had it simplified. If we didn't do the cross canceling, that's all right. You would end up with negative 20 over 24, and you would just have to simplify dividing both sides. It's a little bit more work, so I would recommend doing the cross canceling. It's going to save you a lot of time down the road. All right, example 2. Okay, so we've got a little bit more going on because we have some mixed fractions. So what we're going to do is change these to improper fractions. That's going to be your very first step. Okay, so here, negative 4 and 1/5. Once we go through the trouble, 4 times 5, 4 times 5 plus 1, we end up with the fraction negative 21 over 5. Okay, and then that's going to be divided by negative 10 over 3. Okay. So next step, we're going to change the sign from divide to multiply. And we are going to flip our fractions. So now we have negative 3 over 10. Okay, so unfortunately here we don't get any shortcuts. 10 and 21 have nothing in common. 5 and 3 have nothing in common. So we have to do it the good old-fashioned way, right? So we end up with a negative times a negative. That's an even number, so it's going to be a positive answer. Right, so we end up with 63 over 50, and then we can simplify this back into our mixed fraction, right, and we end up with 1 and 13 over 50, okay? No simplifying to be done here, and that's quite all right. Okay, all right, guys, I'm back. So now we're going to start looking at when we are dividing decimals, right? So when dividing decimals, we will have the same number of decimals in the quotient, so the answer to our division, as in the question, okay? So here the one thing to keep in mind with division though, we actually kind of cancel some decimal points, right? So in the question we're gonna have, here we have like 1, 2, 3 numbers, but we actually have to cancel first and then we'll end up with the same number. So I'll show you how that's done. We're gonna do it kind of long division style just to get things going, and I can show it off a little bit, but here we end up with 0.6 dividing, or 1.3 divided by 0.6, okay? At the end of the day, anything outside is going to cancel the number of decimals inside. So here we would actually move our decimal spot over 1 almost. Here we can move it over 1 as well, right? So we only really have 1 decimal in our answer. Okay, so if we go through all the steps, we end up with 6 goes into 13 twice, okay? And then we're going to have 1 answer, so we know the decimal will follow suit. Okay, here's a minus 12. We end up with 1 left over. Carry down the 8, so then 6 goes into 18 3 times, right? And so we end up with 1 decimal because these cancel out a bit. So our final answer, because we had a negative and a positive, that was an odd number. We're going to end up with 2.3. Okay, let's go on to our next example. Just bring it down a little for you guys. All right. So here, right, we're going to go 2 negatives, so our answer should be positive. We can put that up there just to remind us at the end of the day so that we don't forget our signs. Okay, and so we're going to go with 2.5, because we can always move, again, the decimal spots over once, is divided by 3. Okay. So if we move our decimal spots over the same amount, it makes it a lot easier for where to put the decimal, okay? The decimal will go there. So 2 goes into 3 0 times, so we end up with 0. 3 goes into 25, a total of 8 times, this is 24, okay? And then 1, have the 0, carry it down, that goes in 3 times, so 9. And we can see that this is going to be repeating. So we end up with a 1 and then the 0, and it goes on and on and on. So our final answer we're going to have is 0.883 repeating. Okay, let's look at a couple word problems for this. We're going to wrap it up. This is going to be the end of lesson 5, and then we'll be continuing on to lesson 6 next time. So the last 2 examples we have are, Evan has a piece of plywood that is 6 feet long. If he plans to cut it into pieces that are 1/3 of a foot long, how many pieces of plywood will he have? Okay, so we basically end up with 6 feet, and we're dividing it by 1/3. Okay, so if we plug that into the calculator, we end up with 18.18 repeat. Okay, so it's 18.18, 18. Say that 18 times fast, you'll probably get tongue-tied. All right, so then we can solve this by answering it in a word problem, right? So Evan will have 18 full pieces, right? Pieces and a smaller piece left over. All right. Okay, so the last problem we have is the water level in a pond drops 3.4 meters in 2.3 hours. If the water dropped at a constant rate, that's important, what was the average change in the water level per hour? Okay, so here if it's going 3.4 meters, okay, in 2.3 hours, we want to know what the water changes per hour. So we're going to divide it by the number of hours, right? So 2.3, okay, and again, feel free to use a calculator. It's there, it's your friend. I will use it, so you should too, okay? We have an odd number of negatives, so our answer will be negative. And finally, our water level is dropping by 1.48 meters, okay, per hour, right? It's a speed, so we're going to have a distance time by a time. All right, that's all I have for you today, guys. I hope you have a great day, and we'll see you soon.